मया मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य मआणीस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहुरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om. May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May the mind too be firmly established in my speech. May there be perfect correspondence between my thoughts, words, and actions. O self-effulgent Lord, shine forth in my life. May the truths of the scriptures come to me. May not what I learn from them ever forsake me. Let me lead my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us, for this time, forget all our worldly connections, connection with body, identification with all body and its relations. It is like a heavy coat that you take off when you come in a warm room. Let us assert, I am not the body. I have no parents, children, siblings. I am free from all that. I am the all-pervading consciousness and bliss. I am beyond pleasure and pain. For I am the bliss absolute. I have no birth, no growth, no death. For I am the ever-present existence itself. There is no time in me. I am what is called past, present and future. I am divine. Like a salt doll, getting dissolved in the infinite luminous ocean of bliss. My ego is also dissolved. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's discussion on this very special, unique biography of Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, this is a unique biography in all the biographical literature that I have come across, because this is not just the narration of various facts, but it is also the intention behind all these facts and events, with what intent Sri Ramakrishna was doing all these actions, that also has been very beautifully brought out. We had seen this, that a human life is not led only on the physical plane. There is much deeper mental aspect to it. It is this aspect becomes very prominent in the life of incarnation of God, because the incarnation of God has no other purpose to live but to bring this truth that their essence is divine, they are essentially divine. This truth is to be brought to the knowledge of everyone, to the understanding of everyone. That is why they are taking the human form. So, it is therefore very different for ordinary people. By the external actions we can to a great extent deduce the internal intention, that common thing, that it is when somebody is just sees some other person and smiles, and looking at that smile you understand that these two people are well acquainted, connected with each other, and are happy to see each other by the external physical appearance. But when just imagine that it is a stage show going on. Now, in the stage show, as per the script, they are smiling, they are told to smile, how wide the smile should be, how many teeth should be seen, everything would be probably told. It is, and there may not be actually any other emotion there, only the physical action, and they are just following the script. It is thus there you cannot, by looking at the external action, infer what the inner intention or inner content of it was. But therefore, in the God's appearing as human being, it is called Leela. It is like a play. It is, they act like human being, but not actually human beings. They are divine in content. It is explained in scriptures like Bhagavad Gita. Shankaracharya in his very beautiful elaborate commentary on Bhagavad Gita mentions this, that they have no purpose to be fulfilled. Swaprayojana abhave api, and no purpose to be achieved of their own. But yet they appear as if they have taken birth. Jata dehavan iva, jata iva dehavan iva, lokanugraha kurvan iva. This is just a play for them to appear in a human form. All pervading, they are identified with the all pervading reality. But to teach humanity, they assume a particular human form and act accordingly. So, in this biography too, we see this. Oh, but let us begin with the opening chant. Yeah, I was forgetting that. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ते भूरिदा जनाः. So we have been studying in this divine play studies the life of Gopal Ma, or mother of little Gopala. She came to be known like that. Her actual name was Aghormani, but because she practiced the spiritual disciplines of being devoted to child form of Krishna. Krishna is worshipped in various different ways, different forms. One of the popular forms is Gopala, means a little child cowherd Krishna. So she worshipped Krishna in that form, and was blessed with his vision in the form of that Gopala, as well as that Gopala as Sri Ramakrishna. We saw that whole chapter, that how incredulous for ordinary intellect it is, and yet it is true that Gopal's Ma is now looking everywhere the presence of Gopala, that she saw that Gopala entering in Sri Ramakrishna's person and coming out, and so she started actually calling Sri Ramakrishna as Gopala, that my Gopala. So and Sri Ramakrishna told her that you have achieved everything, you don't need to do anything. And he was also aware that with this kind of experience, an ordinary human body doesn't last too long. He has put in some other place a limit like 21 days maximum, that it is a human body will not be able to last beyond that, except in case of incarnations of God and some such special human beings who are going to be the tools of educating other human beings. Only for those very few they can keep their body for a little longer time. So Sri Ramakrishna wanted this Gopal Ma to live for some more time, to present this great ideal of devotional dedication to God. So he told there that we are reading on page 683. So Sri Ramakrishna told Gopal Ma, you have achieved enough spiritual experiences. In this Kali Yuga, if one has such visions continuously, one's body cannot last long. Perhaps it was the Master's will that the pure body of this poor woman should be spared for some years more for the good of humanity, as a glowing example of motherly love for God. After 2 months, Gopal Ma's visions and experiences subsided to a great degree. However, she was able to regain the vision as before when she sat quietly and meditated on Gopala. One thing is to be remembered here, that her visions subsided doesn't mean that the knowledge associated with them went away. That was there. It just became natural now Now those visions were not causing any excitement as such, and so they were not happening as visions there. It is the excitement, exuberance, all that subsided, and so whenever you need, you will do it. Like say, if you acquire some new skill, then you are excited to keep on practicing it. I remember when I learned how to swim, then always wanted to go and swim. It is now gradually, okay, I don't need to go and swim every day. It is whenever there is an occasion, whenever there is as per discipline or need, I will go and swim. It is so the swimming skill remains, but the need to go on swimming every now and then, that excitement associated with it goes away. So, that is how Gopal's mother now, the knowledge of that came as a matter of this great vision, and we saw that vision was not a matter of just an accident. She was practicing the japa, the meditation and that mantra, repetition of mantra for so many years with such intensity and one pointedness. For 15-16 hours a day, she was just doing this repetition of mantra. Had no other things to do, everything has been given up. She didn't need any delicacies to eat. She would get some rice and some vegetables, greens and all would grow in the backyard, and that is about it. She could buy some salt with whatever allowance she used to get from her old investments, and that was all that was very paltry, but that was, she didn't care for anything more than that, and was just doing her mantra all through. So, gradually as we saw that it purifies us. As what is spiritual practice means, we get purified, our mind gets purified, means all the dross. What is the dross? The dirt and the dross is the desires. Those desires just vanish, and then God is always there. Because of that dross, you are not able to see it. So, when you remove that, it appears. God is there, something like covered by a cloth or something. I was once looking for my phone, and it was switched off, so I didn't could not call also. So, I was looking here, there, everywhere, and was not finding it, and then after some time I picked up one cloth, and it was right under it. So, it was, the cloth was removed, the phone appeared. Not that the removal of cloth made that phone was bought at that time and it appeared like that. No, it was there, but it was covered by the cloth, and so could not see it. So, this is how our desires cover our understanding. Our consciousness is completely covered by that, and so that which exists we cannot see. God who is, we cannot see, and we keep on complaining that God cannot be seen. Well, clean the mind and you see it. There is no other way of making you see it. God is. Your not being able to see does not mean it is not there. Sri Ramakrishna used to give a very nice illustration that during the daytime when there is the dazzle of sun, you do not see the sky, you do not see stars in the sky. Are the stars not there at that time? They are there, not that at the time when the sun sets somebody keeps them there. The stars are there, but your vision is just too dazzled by the sunlight, and so you are not able to see those stars which exist. Exactly in the same way, God is. He is very much here, right with us. Everything is just God alone. But because our vision is kind of distorted, covered, we are not able to see. So, that is why this vision is impure vision, because what we seek with this vision is that which actually is not. That seems to be real, and we see that. That which is just a passing show seems to be real. Is it real? It comes and goes, and that this vision shows us that to be real. And so, it is a distorted vision, whereas when the dross of desires is removed, then we see the truth, that which is ever present, and that it becomes all a verified truth, that whatever the sages have told, that then makes perfect sense. Otherwise, it cannot be shown, if somebody says, no, I have to see it just in this condition. Well, sorry, it is you, unless you clean your mind, you will not be able to see it. And so, it is exactly like that. That is the learning, So, this Gopal's mother would be a great inspiration for that, and so Sri Ramakrishna wanted her body to survive a little longer. So, now here we begin the next chapter, which also is connected with Gopal's mother's future. Future means after these incidents she survived for a few years. How was her life then? Now those constant ecstatic visions have subsided, and so this chapter 7, it is titled Sri Ramakrishna in the company of devotees, the return chariot festival in 1885, and the story of Gopal Ma, last part. So, last part of Gopal's Ma's story. So, and like every chapter in this book begins with a verse from Bhagavad Gita. So, this one is no exception. This is the verse of Bhagavad Gita in 9th chapter, 9:22. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasite tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. The original verse is not given in the book, but the translation is there. Those persons who worship me, meditating on their identity with me and ever devoted to me, to them I carry what they lack, and for whom I preserve what they already have. This Yogakshema, it is this is a devotion that is described in Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta, that it is identification with God. In the beginning we meditated, remove all other identification. which is because we are really not that. We are by a great error identifying with what we are not. We are not body, but we identify with body. It is body. After all, what is it? A heap of flesh, blood, and I don't need to describe, but it is, am I that? I am not actually anything like that. I am not that, and yet we identify with it. So, remove that false identification and say, I am divine, I identify with God. So, ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana paryupasate, they worship like that. And so, they are nityabhiyukta, means constantly united with me. It is, this is devotion. Many have an idea, and I don't know where they get this idea from. It is, they say, well, I am devotee, you know, I am not a Vedantist, I am a devotee. Vedanta is all about devotion. Vedanta is all about this ultimate identification with God, that is the true devotion. Devotion means love directed to God, and the essence of love is the feeling of unity or oneness. So, that is how the devotion to God does not mean that duality there. God and I, they are just two different appearances of the same. That is the goal of all devotional practices, that it is you become or you, let us put it like that, you regain the lost identity with God. You had lost this identity and you were getting erroneously identified with this passing show of body and so forth. So, it is therefore important to say that devotional practice culminates in this identity. And so, and what happens then? The question came there as to who will then support me. It is a very important question that comes to the mind of people. If I do not identify with body and I identify with God, then who will bring food to me? How will I continue my day to day activities? I have to work for getting my support, you know. It is through by doing work, and I have to keep on applying for jobs and then get job, then I earn something by hard work, and thus I feed myself, I support myself, also my household, all that is, I do all that. So, if I say that I am divine and don't do any work, then who is going to bring that support to me? Well, actually God supports everybody. Here God asserts that if you are going to be completely united with me, do not worry about these things. And let this thought not bother you at all. I will take care of you. Yogakshamam vahamyaham. I will take care of you. In India, that life insurance company has made this statement as their motto, Yogakshamam vahamyaham. As if the insurance companies are taking care of you, they don't take care of you, it is, but they promise certain things within their capabilities and all that. You know, the story is there, very nice, illuminating, true story. I was told it at Thousand Island Park. There is a boat tour here, and I was on that tour, and the guide was showing, do you see on that island there all these the half burnt homes? Oh yes, they were the houses of very, very rich people, and wonderful palatial houses. But what happened was, in 1929 crash, when the markets met an unprecedented crash, then all those owners of these rich houses in New York, they had lost everything, and so they thought that they will put fire to these houses and claim insurance, at least they will get something out of it. And so they came there to Thousand Island Park, put fire to their own houses to claim insurance. But then in that whole crash, insurance companies had also crashed. So they lost their houses as well as the insurance money. So it is, nothing in this world is certain. We feel that this money is certain. What it is, nothing actually, it has no meaning. In Sanskrit there is this word for money, artha. Artha, it comes from a root, re. It is, what it means is to go. So that which goes is called money. It is, it becomes money when, only when it goes. Suppose Abhishek has $100 in his pocket, $100 bill in his pocket. It is, and then what is it actually? Till you go to buy something, it is just a paper, isn't it? It is just a paper, and when you buy something with it, what happens to it? It goes. So it is money only when it goes. So it is, but God takes care of everything. It is, let us remember this. I can tell you so many incidents of this. One I would never forget is, I was a novice there in the Ramakrishna Mutt, and there was a cook that was going to, getting old, and he decided therefore to now go give up the work and go to his village. So there were no pension plans or anything there. So I asked that cook, well, you want to give up this work? He said, yes, because I am getting old, I am not able to do all the work that otherwise after a few days you will kick me out. So before that let me in an honorable way retire and go. I said, but well, who is going to bring food and other things to you? And there was a little that ego idea when I was talking this, that as if we are giving him his wages, and so, but that illiterate man opened my eyes, that he said that, look, who has been feeding me so many days will continue to feed me if he wants, and if he doesn't want to feed me, who has the capacity to feed me? Wow, what a great truth it is. It is, nobody has capacity, it is only God gives. So that is mentioned here to because there is a context that is coming up, and it begins with the story of the return chariot festival. Chariot festival is a very popular festival. In fact, it is considered one of the greatest yearly congregation in Jagannath Puri. Probably in the whole world, this is the biggest this festival of this type, where literally millions of people assemble for that. So, and then there are anecdotes associated with it, that the Lord goes in the chariot and after to his aunt's home, and then there are some variants of it, that at aunt's home he took a long cold water bath in some river or water, and then got cold and fever. So, he stayed there for 9 days to get cured, and then came back. That is called the reverse return ratha. So, going and coming back, a 9 days difference is there. So, it is this return ratha. So, about that the discussion is happening. Sometimes after the Gopal Ma saw God in the form of Gopala, the master, and his devotees went to Balram's house in Kolkata on the occasion of the chariot festival. Balram was extremely happy and cordially received the devotees. He was a staunch devotee and belonged to a family that had been dedicated to God for generations. The master bestowed his unbounded grace on Balram and his family. The master told us that once he had wished to see Chaitanya singing kirtan through the streets of the town. His desire was later fulfilled when he was in ecstasy, and it was a marvelous sight, a limitless crowd of dancing and singing Hari's name in the unrestrained madness. Unrestrained madness, intoxicated with the presence of God. So, all these social etiquettes and mannerisms all just automatically gets thrown to winds. So, that was how Sri Ramakrishna got this vision, that there is a huge limitless ocean of people there, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is right in the middle of them. The master said that among all those faces in the crowd, a few had become imprinted on his mind forever. Balram's serene face, luminous with the devotion, was amongst them. So, he saw Balram in that crowd during the Chaitanya's times. So, and he recognized him when he actually saw Balram in these present times. Balram's first visit to the master in Dakshineshwar, the master immediately recognized him as one of those he had seen in the crowd. At Kothar in Orissa, Balram had an estate and a shrine to Krishna, where worship was conducted regularly. Now, there is an ashrama, Ramakrishna Mission's ashrama there at Kothar. There are many instances about this Kothar. Holy Mother had gone there. So, moreover, he had a shrine to Shyam Sundar Krishna in Vrindavan and one in Jagannath went to Jagannath in his Calcutta residence. He made arrangements for worship of the deity in all these of his all these shrines. The master used to say Balram's food is very pure because of his devotion. So, although there Sri Ramakrishna observed certain types of caste restrictions, but he also would waive them in the face of devotion. Because later on Holy Mother coined a very nice phrase about it, that the devotees have no caste, everybody is the child of God, and so all belong to the same family, as it were, as devotees. So, but otherwise he would not eat food except from Brahmins. Balram Basu, he was not Brahmin, but yet Sri Ramakrishna would again and again say Balram's food is very pure. He had no hesitation in dining there. So, whenever he went to Calcutta in the morning, he invariably took his noon meal at Balram's home. It is, one can always find something novel and extraordinary in the act of the superhuman souls, be they everyday or occasional events. Those who associated with Sri Ramakrishna even for a day will certainly understand what we mean. If one probes a little regarding the master's acceptance of Balram's food, the matter will be quite clear. It is even the most ordinary incidents of such lives, they were indicative of something extraordinary. In fact, the so called ordinary incidents, they shed more light on the extraordinariness, because when you are going to do something extraordinary, you already prepare for it, you change for it. So, you will not be able to know how this fellow Yogatmananda really is if you just see me giving lecture, because at that time what happens is I prepare something and I try to behave as good as possible. So, you may think that I am a very good person just by looking at my lectures, but how I really am, look at my minor day to day actions, and that opens a better window in my true character. So, it is a person's true character gets judged by looking at the very ordinary actions, how this person walks, how this person speaks with others, and all such very minor acts, how this person is relaxing, how this person is doing various other works. So, that is very important. So, Sri Ramakrishna's divine personality would just manifest, come out even in the most ordinary situations. So, that is what is told here, that they here the part to see is that it is during his sadhana, the master prayed to the Divine Mother, Mother, don't make me a dry monk, allow me to enjoy the fun in life. And that was his fun in life. You know, fun in life does not mean in the regular sense of the word. Fun in life means that he would interact with people and then have the jokes and humor of all types. So, he was full of all that. In fact, there are many descriptions that people had to beg to him, the devotees, that stop, stop, we cannot, our sides are splitting actually, we cannot laugh anymore, stop. So, Sri Ramakrishna was a person like that, full of the music and dance and the all in the regular actions he was like that. So, not a dry monk. A dry monk, it is not criticized here, one can be a dry monk sitting in somewhere in the cave and shutting from the people, just meditating on God, very good, nothing wrong in that either. But for an incarnation of God to spread all the message, then the interaction with people becomes necessary. And so, people will not come to interact with you, if you are always a morose, depressed person like that, grumpy, who will come to see you, you see. So, Sri Ramakrishna said, no, make me full of, what is he used to say, rasa. So, the master mentioned that he had 4 suppliers. It is told here that who would bring things to him? And God would be bringing, of course, but there were 4 through whom the God would bring. So, of these, some were mentioned by master himself, and others were this author Swami Saradananda has deduced or guessed. So, it is the Divine Mother showed him that she had sent to the world 4 persons who would provide for his needs. The master mentioned that the first of these 4 suppliers was Mathur, a son-in-law of Rani Rasmani. We had seen about that. The second was Shambhu Malik. Surendranath of Simla, whom the master called Surender or sometimes Suresh, was a half supplier. Although Sri Ramakrishna himself does not mention him, although yes, he was supplying Sri Ramakrishna's needs for some time, but there is no direct mention of that. And here he is called half supplier. Now, what does it mean? Half supplier, and who is the remaining half supplier? So, we did not have the good fortune to witness Mathur's and Shambhu's loving service to the master, because we came to the master long after their passing away. But the master told us that their service was remarkable. We do not remember whether the master ever mentioned that Balram was one of the suppliers, but we were amazed by the way Balram served the master. His service was not inferior in any respect to that of other suppliers, except Mathur's. We shall try to describe these things of another time, but this much we can say: Balram supplied all the food that the master needed: rice, rock candy, farina, sago, barley, vermicelli, and so forth. From the day he first met the master at Dakshineshwar until he later passed away. And as for Surendra, shortly after his first visit, he made arrangements for food and bedding for those devotees who spent the night in Dakshineshwar in order to serve the master. So, he thinks these three are there, like Balram, although not mentioned by Sri Ramakrishna, is one of them, and then this Surendranath is half, and the half is, he mentions, Swami Saradananda mentions that that Sara Bull, who later bought that Belur Math, gave money for buying Belur Math land and also build the some construction there was made through that. So, she was the half remaining supplier. That four were mentioned by Sri Ramakrishna. So, who can describe the mysterious relationship that these people had with the master, and who can explain how they earned such a great privilege? We understand only this much: they were extremely fortunate people to have been thus marked by the Divine Mother. They could not otherwise have been born with the privilege of being helpers in the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna. Their faces could not otherwise have been imprinted on the free, pure and awakened mind of Sri Ramakrishna, so that he could recognize them at first sight and remark, they belong to this place. They are born with the special privilege of serving him. So, this is about this, because there was not the slightest trace of I consciousness in the pure mind of Sri Ramakrishna. He would say, they belong to this place, instead of saying mine. That was a special point that is stressed by the life of Sri Ramakrishna, that there is no sense of ego or I. It is so, whenever it was meant to be for him, he would show this, that it is, because the I is same everywhere. There is no different I here and here and here, or even the I in what we mistakenly call inanimate things. They also have consciousness. So, the I is same in all, there is no distinction in that. But when you have to point out something, and then when it is, instead of pointing I, this, like we would say this here, this there, this also is, it is this, it is an object and not subject. Sri Ramakrishna had no ego, a very special feature that one can see. So, therefore, the main idea in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings was learn to give up I. Give up I. So, that is the obstacle. There is a nice Sufi saying that I have many times referred to, that had this I not been there, then I was God. Na hoti khudi to main khudai to tha. It is this khudi means this I-ness, which makes this separate from this and that separate from that. It is when this goes away, there is nothing but God alone. So, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that this is to be given up. One Swami in a lecture told, I remember that very much, that Sri Ramakrishna is an eye specialist. Means we have these eye specialists, EYE, eye specialist. So, when some problem is there with this eye, then you go to that eye specialist and maybe gives you eye drop. Eye drop is given. But this Sri Ramakrishna is the big eye specialist, capital eye specialist. So, he does not give eye drop, but says drop eye. It is drop eye that is given, not eye drop. So, and that is the essence actually of all what we call as spiritual practice, that this is not the I. So, friends, we shall continue this reading next Tuesday. We shall think of these teachings for a few seconds, and then if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Any question? This our Abhishek has a question. I cannot hear. Is that on? Which microphone to put on? It is not on, this microphone.
I'll get you another one.
Now it is
now
on.
It
Yeah,
works.
it was from the top that was not put on. Yeah. So, yes, please go ahead.
So the first question is that if the first assumption number one is that the consciousness is omniscient, has all knowledge. The second assumption is that the same consciousness is present among all of us. So when the consciousness is all knowledgeable, how did the consciousness become ignorant that we have to again the consciousness has to relearn this?
Well, you know, this question has been asked many times, and there is no answer to it, because there is how comes in the multiplicity, and so there is no how this whole knowledge became ignorance. The question is being asked in ignorance, you know, how in knowledge there is no question. I had suggested that you read that chapter in Jnana Yoga, where this is Swami Vivekananda's very famous book, Jnana Yoga, Yoga of Knowledge. There is this great chapter, absolute and relative. So, we ask question about absolute, but we already take it that how the absolute became relative. The questions are of that type. If it can become relative, means something else is acting on it, isn't it? Something is there which is, and so it is not absolute. Absolute as such can never become relative except in ignorance.
Whose ignorance?
Whose ignorance? That again is the question of the same type, you know, whose ignorance? I told about this in the, giving the Shankaracharya's beautiful commentary on the second verse of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There one Abhishek asked question like that, whose ignorance? Tell me, who is in ignorance? And Shankara says, well, what do you want to, why are you worried about whose ignorance? And well, this explains this questioner, unless we know whose ignorance, how can we remove it? So, we need to know. Then Shankaracharya says there, the one who has let that fellow worry about it, why you want to worry? And then this man, but I have ignorance. Then you already know who is ignorant.
But I am the consciousness, so then how can I be ignorant?
It is, you are the consciousness that you read, you know.
Yes.
What you actually experience is that I am body.
Yeah, ego.
So, it is, that is when they two match up, you know, that I am the pure consciousness. Then the questions disappear. These questions are not solved, they are resolved. Means they just vanish, you know. It is like if you are seeing in a dream, a tiger is chasing you and you are scared and the tiger is about to pounce on you and you just scream and wake up.
Yeah, like that.
Now, what happened to the tiger? Did it finally catch up with you or not? Can those questions be answered? No, there wasn't such a thing.
Yeah.
So, this answer is like that. And the second question was what?
Second question I have to
Okay.
do. So the second question is always this thing that comes up when you say that, okay, if nobody has to provide for me, because yes, God will provide for me. In this case, God is a doer in this relative plane. So then the question is this witness consciousness awareness, like the screen in the movie. Now you once said that if there is a movie now, inside the movie there is a fire. Now somebody from outside is not able to extinguish that fire. So in the same way, the screen cannot extinguish the fire because the fire is in that movie relative plane. But now if the God has to be a doer, then the screen itself is trying to extinguish that fire, then how is that possible?
Well, the doership is not the regular doership that we think in terms of. It is without doing anything, God does everything. That is the beauty of it. Without doing anything, that it is without moving anywhere, all the movements are happening on screen. The screen does not move anywhere. Screen does not feed anybody in that sense, but the feeding is happening on this screen. So, it is, so God brings the food, every action is done by God. All actions are done by God, and wherever therefore there is the ego, I do it, you have to take the result of it also in the form of bondage. In some scriptures it is nicely described that thus you are a thief. God is doing it and you are trying to get credit for it, that I did it. Okay, so you will be punished by putting a bondage around you. Whosoever thinks I do, okay, well, you get bound by that, your actions. If I don't do, then I don't get the bondage. So, God does really everything. So, in that verse, it is specially mentioned about those who are connected with God all the time. Nitya Yukta, constantly, always connected with God, because now they do not worry about anything. So, still, as long as they need to be fed, somebody brings food to them. It is really so amazing, you know, who feeds whom. I have seen so many different things, that it is all very different now for me, that this statement is, I fully truly believe it. It is once I was going to go in a train long ago. So, the train was going to go on one station. I was going from Nagpur to Pune, and then the train would be going through one station, and then some devotee in that station said that we are going to bring food for you. I said, okay, yeah, the train stops there for quite some time, so yes, I will be happy. Now, who was going to bring me food? And that person was going to bring, and he was preparing everything, getting ready, but due to some derailment, the train had to change its route. And so that station had to be skipped. So, who fed me? I didn't go hungry. There were others who fed me. I didn't have to go hungry, you see. So, who feeds whom? Very difficult it is. And I have seen so many examples, so many times I have experienced this. So, it is, I fully accept, believe that those words.
It is on a belief, it's a belief, because again the screen can never change the outcome of the movie, because the movie is directed, it's preset, screen cannot interfere into the movie.
See, the example is given only to show that the screen is the reality in all these pictures. If you stretch it too much, then the analogy breaks, you know. Okay.
There is a web question.
A question on the web.
Yeah.
Okay, please read out.
By Taras Vin.
Huh?
Taras Vin.
Taras Vin.
Yeah. Revered Maharaj.
Why is divine remembrance so difficult for the mind?
Oh, yes. Exactly, it is very difficult to keep on remembering God all the time. Why should it be so difficult? The reason is because we have the habit of keep on remembering other things. Those all other things, even if you decide that I will not remember those things, still all those impressions are there, those things are so connected with us and we crave for them. So, those things come to our mind and not the remembering God, but practice, if we keep on practicing, and the practice as told in Bhagavad Gita and many other places is twofold. One is to keep on thinking about God, and second part of it is keep away from those other things, that drag your mind towards this worldliness. So, practicing these two things, like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, anurag and virag, means anurag means the devotion or love to God, and then virag means dispassion from all the worldly things. So, and they are simultaneously to be practiced. So, therefore, he says anurag virag, virag anurag. So, both are to be practiced together. Yeah, that is how we will gradually be able to remember God all the time. So, friends, let us conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.